Hello and welcome to another episode of Cast Iron, the podcast all about metal. I'm your host Lewis Clark and I'm joined as usual by the wonderful Alan Williamson. Hello Alan.
Hello Lewis, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Pretty good for having a nice blast half an hour of fun and stupidity. So yeah, really enjoyed my time with this.
So we've got a bit of top of the show news that we alluded to in the last episode, which is we have a new website. So if you go to castironshow.co.uk, you'll see we've got a lovely new theme. All the old episodes are on there, and we're debating before the show whether we're going to use it for writing stuff, but the capacity exists.
Exactly.
So we'll see what we do. But this is a new sustainable home for us that looks better and doesn't require me losing my mind over RSS feeds.
Yep.
You shouldn't notice any difference to the podcast feed. It should all just work in the background. But it just makes it a bit easier for us to get out episodes in the future. You can also, if you go to it, you can follow me in Apple Music from the homepage, and you can try and guess what album is coming next, which seems to be a popular game among some of the fans.
Good stuff. Well, lovely to see. I am very much enjoying the facelift. I think it is a suitable look for our little sort of rebirth, I guess.
It's better than the Tumblr, anyway.
Absolutely.
Oh, that was shit. That really made me feel like an old man. So now we've got our old man website.
Exactly.
So
well, we understand how that works. Oh, hang on, right, Alan. I've got a bit I want to do, right?
Oh, so okay. You got a bit. Oh, okay. You make it sound like it's going to be a recurring feature, or you've been rehearsing it.
Right, here we go. 6079 Williamson A. Big Brother is watching you. That's right. It's time for 1984 by Van Halen.
So Van Halen are kind of the quintessential American hard rock band of the 70s and 80s. And the reason we picked this one is obviously Eddie Van Halen, who is the guitarist and one of the principal songwriters. He passed away on the 6th of October 2020.
Yep.
And you have definitely heard his music before. So apart from Van Halen, he is probably most famous for the guitar solo in Michael Jackson's Beat It.
Indeed,
which is, and I don't think we're going to have much of an argument, it's pretty much one of the best guitar solos ever.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, agreed completely. So how familiar were you with either this album or Van Halen's music in general? Because I've got to say, I'm very similar in that regard. I think everything I had heard was either a single off this album or basically that guest spot on Beat It. So
I think with a lot of these bands, I mean, not so much like a lot of the metal bands, like, you know, the classic metal bands like Sabbath and Metallica and Maiden. Like, I have listened to all of their back catalogue. With some of the hard rock stuff, like so Led Zeppelin's a good example. Yeah, and Van Halen kind of this is where we're getting into the is it really metal?
Well, This is
and according to Wikipedia, yes, which is the only criteria we need. And it does say on our website a podcast about rock and metal. And we've done hardcore before, so we can get
absolutely.
But With bands like Led Zeppelin, so I first got into Led Zeppelin through the Remasters album. Yep. And I have listened to some of their albums in their entirety, but others, like, I don't think I've ever listened to Led Zeppelin 2 or 3 back to front. And Van Halen's another one of those bands where you definitely know the hits.
Yep.
Like, we've all heard songs like Jump and Hot for Teacher, in Talking About Love and Eruption, and you know their cover of You Really Got Me and stuff, right? But I don't think, maybe it's just us, like, I don't think a lot of people have listened to the back catalogue in its entirety. So that was really interesting. And and there's a lot of classic stuff in their back catalogue. Like there's some excellent songs in their earlier albums, like Ian Talking About Love off their first album, Dance the Night Away, Unchained as a particularly catchy riff. So we picked 1984 primarily because we thought it would be fun. And this album does two different things, which are it brings in a lot more synth.
Yep.
And Van Halen had a very classic hard rock sound, similar to, like as we said, Led Zeppelin, AC/DC, and those kind of bands are all contemporaries. So this album brings a lot more synth, and it's still Eddie Van Halen on the synth. He plays that on the guitar. But it was mainly because it was fun. But this is also the last album before David Lee Roth leaves the band and starts his solo career. And after that, he's replaced by Sammy Hagar, and the band sort of gets the epithet of Van Hagar after that point, and it's just not the same. So this is a good, I think, a good representative classic Van Halen album that's got a bit of their weird 80s synth stuff, because everybody was doing weird synth stuff in the 80s, but it's also got a lot of hard rock and blues influences.
Yeah, it's a very varied record, actually. I was surprised at how sort of it runs the gamut almost of just styles and influences. It's very, very eclectic, considering it's only like 33 minutes long.
And it's interesting that like a lot of those albums are pretty short. And it's, I don't know if it's just it's probably a limitation of vinyl, isn't it? Because you've got two sides.
I think
you've not got that much space, and double albums were really expensive. I
think it's about 45 minutes to a record, both sides. So there was room for movement here, but I don't know why it ended up this short. I don't know why it's only is it 9 songs if you even include the intro?
9 songs if you include the intro.
It's slight, but do you know what? It packs a punch, and it doesn't feel like there's any space wasted on this. Let's put it that way. And
that's the interesting thing about albums of that time, is that they're released in a very single driven way. And there wasn't a lot of fat on them. I think that's where I just sort of said about, I haven't really listened to Led Zeppelin 2 or 3, and I guess beyond those hits that were culled for their greatest hits collections, you're probably not missing a huge amount unless you're a super fan.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? So 1984 is the album. As I've alluded to at the start, it's actually not about George Orwell's dystopian masterwork. It's actually more about shagging.
Like most of their songs are about shagging. And there's a good anecdote on that, and when we get to Panama, which is not about shagging, and it was but we've got, so it opens with 1984. And that's really just an intro track, but it gives you a good idea of what's coming. We've got some very strange science fiction sense and Close Encounters of the Rock kind about to begin.
Very spacey, trippy intro, totally. And all synth, no other instruments involved. It's basically, here's a load of synth, and this is what you're going to get on this record. You don't get it on every track, actually, to be honest with you, but it certainly introduces that instrument to the forefront of your mind when you start this. Not really an awful lot to say about it. It's atmospheric and spacey, and it's
only 1 minute long, so it's mercifully brief.
Yeah, exactly. But it does lead us into possibly the most well-known Van Halen song, I think.
I'd say so, yeah.
Yeah, it's Jump. And it is possibly one of the most iconic sort of synth rock bangers, I guess, of all time. Karaoke classic, definitely. Just loads and loads of fun.
So I was in the gym yesterday morning, and in order for us to go to the gym that week, we get up at 5:30 and go. And I've had a really bad sleep this week because it's like all the week, because we had the dog at the vet, and then he broke in at 2 a.m. one day and tried to jump on the bed. It's been very warm, like 30 degrees overnight, and I just got to the gym and I thought, I don't think I'm going to make it through this set. I can't face this. Thank God for Jump. Because it really just got me through it. I was like, we can do this. I can go ahead and jump. I might as well jump. I might as well squat, I suppose. But no, it's a really good get up and go motivator. We actually played this song at our wedding.
Oh really? Oh my God.
Yeah, and we didn't play it because I'm a massive Van Halen fan. We played it because it's a really fun,
absolutely,
pop metal track.
Absolutely,
it's a pop rock classic. This one, do you think anyone dislikes the song Jump? Do you think there's anybody who really vehemently dislikes it?
I mean, there's got to be like Van Halen fans that like think that the shift towards this poppier stuff is like sacrilegious. I'm sure there's that out there, but I think but I think if you take it on its own, it's just a fun, like enjoyable song. It's really bouncy and silly and over the top, and it's difficult to hate, isn't it?
Well, it's simple but effective.
Absolutely,
and that's I think that's the thing we come back to in this is that this is it's uncomplicated music, but that doesn't mean that it's boneheaded.
No,
it's actually
absolutely.
It's actually pretty well composed.
No, it's been really fun to listen to.
So this one, you've got Eddie leading on the synth, and it starts off, a very simple keyboard.
Yeah,
I don't know what you call it, keyboard riff. Let's call it that.
I guess so. Yeah.
But then it gets into the more fiddly tapping style that he popularized with Eruption. He didn't come up with it. Apparently, one of the guitarists from Genesis came up with that.
Oh, interesting.
But I haven't looked into that more. But he certainly popularized the tapping, the style of guitar soloing.
Absolutely.
If you don't know what that is, just listen to Eruption or Spanish Fly off Van Halen 2's an acoustic tap solo.
Oh right, okay.
But this is just great fun. This is a real delight. I don't particularly care if it is not real Van Halen or not real metal or not. I think it's fun. We listen to so many bands who are just the same on every album.
Yeah.
And this is a good example of how to evolve your sound. I mean, it's this kind of music is poppy. Yeah. It's not like super hardcore, metal fans. This is real metal. Nobody who's a real metalhead was really listening to this. This is you're driving your Mustang down some numbered highway in America, and you're blasting this out through the open top, right?
Absolutely.
That's this kind of music. This is meathead radio rock.
Yep. Completely, I agree completely. One of the things I did really like about this is that 2:20 you get the big Eddie Van Halen solo, and it's a guitar solo first, but then he switches over to the keyboard and does another solo on the keyboard. just a beast. So really fun.
We will talk about the rest of Van Halen and other parts of the album, but if Eddie Van Halen is a very, very prodigiously talented guitarist.
Mm-hmm.
Solo in this, absolutely. I think the correct 80s term is wheels. Is this solo wheels? But he's, what he was doing was taking a lot of the more hard rocky, Jimi Hendrix style guitar music of the 60s and making it growl like a monster and adding a lot of effects like vocoders and distortion and stuff to it and really giving that more of a angry robot sound to it.
Yeah.
So you could listen to this now and think, this sounds, this just sounds like metal music. This is where this sound originated.
Yeah.
This is where the sound came through, and you can trace a line from bands like Van Halen all the way through to your Metallicas and your Guns N' Roses and all that kind of stuff that came in the 80s and 90s. So this is the birthplace of. This is why this is interesting, because this album isn't very proggy, although it is synthy. But some of David Lee Roth's solo stuff, particularly Skyscraper, where he's joined by Steve Vai, is actually a pretty proggy album.
Yeah, I mean, with Steve Vai involved, you'd like to think it would have got some prog in there.
But that's another example of the kind of stuff that followed us. Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, Amy Malmsteen. A lot of the stuff all springs from Van Halen, which is good because I generally quite like Satriani and Steve Vai. People think they're a bit wanky, but I'm down for it.
No, totally. It's a great start. Very much sets up the the theme of this record, or its synth and that. And I had an awful lot of fun with this, and it was nice hearing it in context in the full record, to be honest with you, because I think most people have only ever heard this isolated as a single, and it's very much a radio rock thing, as you said. So you often hear it sort of in the background, but to give it the time it deserves and actually listen to it with headphones and actually study what was going on, it's a lot more to it than it first reveals, to be honest with you. And like I say, really enjoyed the solos on this. So we will move on to Panama. Or as I have been calling it all week, Pan Yamar.
Panama.
Eddie's guitar work is pretty much on show in full force on this track. I love his playing. He's got this really sort of loose yet energetic sort of style. It's very sort of, he just feels like he's one with his instrument. You know, he's playing it very sort of loose and mellow, but he doesn't skip a beat. You know, he's so on the ball with all his melodies and all his guitar riffs. He's an incredible player. I think it's just amazing. The way it moves is so wild, but it's just performed so well. I'd say the riff on this one has big sort of AC/DC energy, to be honest with you. It's that sort of hard rock riff, but there's a bluesy element to it, a bit sort of Little Richard as well. I suppose it all comes from that, doesn't it?
It's got a nice bend in the riff. It goes.
I love those
really nice,
those flourishes happen so many times throughout this record, where it's just like the riff is doing what you'd expect it to as a rhythm, guitar, but there's all these little, like you say, little flourishes and little bends and stuff that just make it that little bit more special, that little bit more memorable. It totally is very much Eddie's style, and you can hear him.
Well, that's where it's like it's simple but effective.
Yeah,
and this could have just been just over and over, right? That could have been enough, but it's all those little, as you said, little flourishes and filigrees and things that he puts over the top that they make it really catchy and memorable. I mean, this song is probably what most people expect with Van Halen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so the lyrics to this song were written in response to some music critic complaining that all Van Halen wrote about were, cars, drugs, and women, and drinking. And David Lee Roth was like, I've never actually written a song about a car before. So this one has lyrics about a fast car that could be a woman. And like, as well as the guitar, and I particularly like the guitar lick in the bridge after the solo.
Yep.
Where it kind of fades down and gets a little more mellow. It's got quite a lot of, no pun intended, drive to it.
Yeah.
Including the drums are actually doing quite a lot of work. And the drummer is another Van Halen. He's Alex Van Halen. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that in Hot for Teacher, because he has a good solo in it. But the drums are actually doing quite a lot here.
Yeah. No, I think instrumentation-wise, the more you pay attention to what everybody's doing, the more you realise that, wow, there's some amazing musicians in this band. When the bass sort of creeps through, you realise how interesting the bass lines are. They don't really just follow the rhythm. They have their own sort of style and movement, which I really, really enjoyed. They obviously punctuate everything really well. Drums, again, like you say, Alex is a crazy drummer, isn't he? Really good drummer. He's, again, he knows where he needs to be to make the song work, but at the same time, he is an impressive Sticksman, and he gets to really thrive on this record. And there's some great drum fills and things like that.
I would say that, looking more broadly at hard rock, I think Van Halen are unfairly regarded as a bit boneheaded. I think the music is actually much, much better than that now.
Yeah.
David Lee Roth is okay. I think he is an appropriate hard rock frontman, but I don't think he's a particularly good vocalist. Some of the tracks in this, he's pretty good, but I think I wouldn't say he's the weak link in the band, but he's not Robert Plant, right? He's more like an Ozzy Osbourne. I am a front man, but I'm not a particularly amazing singer. But I think Van Halen, are better than a lot of their contemporaries. So whenever I was listening to this, I got some Apple Music recommendations, actually off the back of listening to 5150, which is one of the Van Hagar albums.
Yeah.
So they recommended Rat, Poison, Warrant, and some band called Autograph with a strange robot album cover. And I think Van Halen are a lot better than those bands.
Yeah.
And nowhere near as formulaic. I'm not a massive fan of this kind of stuff in general, and I haven't listened to a lot of it. I've certainly listened to, listened to it through Guitar Hero.
Absolutely. There's definitely
because it's good. This is good Guitar Hero staple music, but I think that Van Halen are much better than the rest of the genre, and even like later bands like Guns N' Roses. I'm not a massive Guns N' Roses fan either.
Same, absolutely.
But this to me hits the right spot of cheese and fun, and interesting noodly fun bits.
Yeah,
and again, there's another ridiculous solo in this because you get used to it.
Yeah, well, you've got to have a solo, right? It's a Van Halen song. There's got to be a solo in it.
Absolutely.
Enjoyed this a lot. The only thing I'd say in regards to David Lee Roth is I think, in a weird way, his limitations benefit the music, because I think if you had someone who was a virtuoso that could really run the whole length of the scale or whatnot, I think it would be too much. I think you need someone who's a little bit more mellow, a little bit more grounded to help bind this all together in a weird way. I think it would be too much to have a big waily Axl Rose sort of voice on it. It would just be a little bit too intense. So I think in a weird way, David Lee Roth not being, he being serviceable. I'm not going to say he's a terrible vocalist. I'm not going to say he's a great vocalist, but he's definitely serviceable, and I think it benefits the whole product in a weird way. Again, like you, I don't dislike what he's doing. I don't think he's incredible, but at the same time, I don't think he's terrible either.
No, I don't think he's terrible. And one of the as I was looking through the Van Halen review archives and stuff, people have said that he sort of talks more than he sings.
Yeah.
But what that does give you is this pub rock feel where people can sing along with it, because it's not particularly hard, and that's why you can do jump karaoke.
Well,
in the way that you wouldn't want to listen to Stairway to Heaven karaoke, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's not.
It's the same with Panama, isn't it? Like the chorus is literally just some men going Panama. It's not difficult to do, is
Yeah.
it?
Anyone can do that.
Exactly.
But this was I think a well deserved reputation as a classic. This one.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree completely. Right, we move on to...
things get a little more... they get a little more interesting in the next track, which is Top Jimmy.
Yeah.
Jimmy on the television, famous people out there with him. Jimmy out the music vibe. Jimmy on the radio and even on the video, a baddest cat alive. Driving all the women crazy, only one is Jimmy, baby. Love when he rolls his eyes. Top Jimmy cups, Top Jimmy swings. He's got the love. Top Jimmy, woo, sing it, baby.
It's not about a top.
This one has more of a rock and roll vibe.
Yeah, it's the guitar is less distorted, and it makes the song sort of janglier and funkier, I guess. I really enjoyed the way this works just by changing the effect of the guitar. Really, I think the pace steps up a little bit as well. It's got some nice momentum as a song. I think it's a really interesting one.
It reminded me a little bit of ZZ Top, but it reminded me of
no, that's a good shout actually.
But it's my mind's stereotype of what ZZ Top sounds like. 'Cause again, my knowledge of them is mostly radio hits and Guitar Hero.
Yeah.
I love that. What I really love about this album is that Eddie Van Halen just farts out god tier solos and riffs throughout the whole album.
Oh my god, the one at 150
like he's doing
on
it
this.
in his sleep.
Sing it, baby.
Yeah, no, totally. Oh no! Again, just really, really good fun. I don't know if this one stood out as much as some of the other tracks on this record. To be honest with you, I think if I was going to skip any, Top Jimmy might be one of them. But it's not to say that I didn't enjoy it. To be honest with you, I think I liked the change of pace. I enjoyed that it was a little bit faster than what we come with previously, only slightly, but it definitely had some momentum to it. And I liked that. Yeah, just by changing the effect of the guitar, it made things sound quite different. I
enjoyed this one.
Yeah, no, totally. But yeah, it wasn't a standout track for me. Let's put it that way. But it was. This
is an album track. It's a B-side track.
Yeah,
isn't
absolutely,
it?
totally.
This is a fun B-side, but it wouldn't be a single. And that's it. We're coming off the back of two songs that they released as singles.
Exactly. So yeah,
in a sense, it's obvious that the subsequent tracks would not be as iconic or radio friendly.
Yeah, I agree completely. But yeah, still a solid track, well worth listening to, especially in context of the whole record, because I think the whole thing does really benefit from having its ups and downs and its movements and its stylistic changes, because it just makes for a more interesting piece. Yeah, good stuff. We then move on to Drop Dead Legs. Which again, I think has another sort of stompy, mid-paced AC/DC style, hard rock riff.
Very AC/DC vibes.
Yeah.
Like I think the inspiration runs both ways.
Yeah,
and I was trying to trace it all together yesterday when I was making some notes for the show. And they're basically around the same time period. It wasn't like the black metal episode where I'd sort of said that I don't know, I said something silly about what came first and what influenced what. When black metal actually influenced thrash metal, it wasn't the other way around. Apologies, Paul. Because it came that late in the 70s.
Yeah. Oh, that's fair. That's fair.
So it actually came ahead of that, but I hadn't quite put two and two together. But this time I have. It goes both ways. And I don't want to jinx my future Australian citizenship by dissing AC/DC. I think they are fine.
Yeah.
I think AC/DC are totally listenable.
Yeah.
I do think they're a bit overrated and not the best Aussie pub rock band. I think Midnight Oil are probably the best Aussie rock band, and Cold Chisel are also better. I've seen Cold Chisel live; they were fun. I think AC/DC are fine. I think they're fine, and I think this song too is fine.
Yeah.
I think it's good. Bit more casual riffing and shredding, and that's good enough to get you through it. It's got more of a rock and roll feel in the back half, and it's good enough that I wouldn't skip it. But in the broader context, it is pretty forgettable. And I guess that's what we said about Top Jimmy as well. Is this a good song? Yes. Yeah. Is this an all-time iconic track like Jump or Panama? No, it's not.
Yeah. No, that's the thing, isn't it? Again, I like what the guitar is doing. I think there's some really interesting guitar work at the end of the chorus. And I like the way that the song has a sort of habit of just going off course. Like the guitar just sort of like does its own thing for a little bit and then it sort of comes back around to the riff again. Really strange arrangements which just sort of make it pop a little bit. I really enjoyed that. And there's just a lot more to this than you realise at first, to be honest. I really like Eddie's work on the guitar. I think he's a fantastic guitarist. And I like the way that this one ends on a solo. Like, it's fading out as a solo is happening. And I'm just like, that's an interesting way of taking his his solo work. But it gives it this weird energy where it's just like, Eddie, can you stop soloing, please?
Like they had to cut him off. We would have kept going for hours. Yeah.
But no, I did really enjoy Drop Dead Legs. I think it's a better song than Top Jimmy for me personally. But it's definitely that sort of mid-album sort of slump where it's like, these are fine tracks. They do what they need to do, but they're not singles. You know, they're very much there to pad the record out, but not in a way that they're padding. It's more that they're just not as good as the singles.
I think whenever I listen to some of the other albums, because I pretty much went through the whole back catalogue before we proposed doing this for Cast Iron anyway. Yeah. And this is where this album, I think, is better than the rest of the Van Halen back catalogue because the back half tracks are more memorable. The non-solo tracks are better. I think if you just had to go based on whatever the singles were, then you could probably make a case for Van Halen 2 or Fair Warning.
Yeah.
But this one, I feel, is a stronger overall package as an album.
Yeah, I'd agree, to be honest with you. Right then, let's do it.
So we're flipping the vinyl over for side 2.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've got Hot for Teacher.
Wait a second, man. What do you think the teacher's gonna look like this year? Teacher, stop that screaming. Teacher, don't you see? Don't wanna be no uptown fool. Maybe I should go to hell, but I'm doing well. Teacher needs to see me after school. I think of all the education that I missed, but then my homework was never quite like this.
Oh, mate, what a song! Oh God, right? Yeah, I absolutely adored this. This has been on repeat all week. I have heard Hot for Teacher before, but I don't think I've given it the attention it really deserves. And listening to it this week was just so good. This is probably the track where we actually hit some metal, I'd say. This is probably the most metal overarching sound that you get on this record. We get loads of double bass drumming for one, like we've got speed, we've got tapping. It's kind of thrashy, like it's loads and loads of fun. We'll break it down a little bit. So it starts off with Alex's just incredible drum solo. Lots and lots of double bass. I like how at this point in time, metal hasn't quite established itself sound-wise. So despite the fact that there's loads of double bass on it, it doesn't have like the sort of bassy, like hit you in the gut sort of oomph that you normally get from double bass drumming. It's very sort of marchy. Lots of marching sound to it.
I would describe it as a little jazzy.
Yeah.
It's got a bit more of a groove to it than, as you say, that sort of thunders. That you would hear from, I don't know, probably like Megadeth or something like that.
Yeah.
It's not Rust in Peace drumming.
Absolutely.
It's not death metal drumming.
Yeah, we're not at Slayer yet. But yeah, no, it's incredible. It's brilliant, and I love the way that once the sort of tapped riff comes in, it really sort of matches the rhythm of the drum work. And there's so much of this song is just instrumental, and you just get to appreciate some amazing musicianship. To the point that I think David Lee Roth is at a bit of a disservice in this one, in that like he could almost not be there and it would be fine.
I think this is actually probably his best vocal performance in the album, because it makes the most of what he has. So he's actually doing more singing. I found a quote for the lyrics to this one, which I thought probably sums up the whole band. This critic, Chuck Klosterman, and he said, the lyrics are technically demeaning, but somehow come across as non-toxic and guileless.
Yeah, that's fair. Because it is like, you think about the concept in general, and it's just like, is, having an attraction to a teacher a good thing to be pushing out there into the world? I suppose it's, not as worse as it being the other way around, right?
Hot for pupil.
Yeah. Could be a little bit more.
The cancelled original track.
But yeah, so like you say, it's inoffensive in a weird way. Like it could have been a lot worse. But like, yeah, it works for what it's trying to do. It's a silly, fun song. I think, if I remember correctly, reading somewhere that this was quite a big sort of MTV hit, because the video is very sort of plays up to all the tropes of the school thing, and it's just fun and silly, and we get to have long-legged women dancing around our video and stuff.
This is very like proto-Spinal Tap.
Yeah, you can totally
This is like
getting
in Hot for Teachers, getting into Smell the Glove territory.
Yeah. But I think as well, like when you watch the video and stuff, you can see like there's big tongue-in-cheek action going on here. It's played for giggles. It's not really trying to take itself seriously. It's fun and over the top, and it's just one of the best rock songs ever made. I think it's just fantastic. I couldn't believe how much I enjoyed this on repeat listens. I think it's just an absolute career highlight for any band, to be honest with you. I think it's incredible. I don't know how you feel about Hot for Teacher. Don't know if you're as passionate as I am about this one, but I absolutely adored it.
I think that's probably very close to what I think. The solo's another masterpiece.
Yeah.
It's interesting because although I agree with you saying about this is one of the more metallic songs.
Yeah.
Actually, while the drums have a very driving metal feel to them, again, I think there's more of that rock and roll bluesy vibe. You're getting that southern rock influence into it.
I mean, the riff itself it's got a nice swing to it, hasn't it? It's not as it's not as defined as you would with a metal riff. You don't get sort of palm muting or anything like that. It's very sort of, it's allowed to ring and it's allowed to move and swing, and it's like you say, it's more of that blues to it. I realised something else when I was listening to this song as well. Eddie sounds like he's trying to play both of the rhythm and lead guitar parts at any given point on this record. And I was like, oh, okay, it makes sense now. He's having to make up for the fact that there isn't a rhythm guitarist there. He's doing it all himself. And that is pretty impressive for a single man. But yeah, it doesn't lose anything. It's one of the things, isn't it? Whenever there's a solo on this record, it always feels like without a rhythm guitarist, there should be it should feel more empty. And it doesn't happen on this record for whatever reason. It never feels like there's an element of the song missing whenever Eddie decides to devolve into a big solo. And I don't know if it's just the production or not. I couldn't quite put my finger on it.
I think that one of the things that's sort of a hard rock staple, and we'll talk about it a bit more in I'll Wait, the next track, is that rock bass is often very technically undemanding. It is really just dum 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 dum. It's very much one note plugging with a little bit of groove in there. So you think about Jump, it's like, what was the bass line to Jump? It was just dum 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 dum.
Yeah, true.
That's and I guess that's where it's given the guitar that space to breathe.
Yeah.
You compare to a band like, I'm trying to think of contemporary acts, something like the Police. Where Sting's playing the bass, like the Police have bass lines. Yeah. This has more of an atmospheric bass that's backing up the drums.
Yeah, it's like
so
you
that's
say,
probably where you need that
rhythm and groove.
You need you need that extra guitar oomph to fill in the whole soundstage.
Yeah, no, totally. Again, it all works in context of the song, and just like you say, it allows the solos to not sound like they're playing over nothing. It doesn't feel, they don't feel disparate. They don't feel like they're supposed to be where they are. Basically, it's really well arranged, actually. Okay,
I think you're right that this probably is the quintessential Van Halen track. And it's got a similar vibe to whenever they did the cover of "You Really Got Me," where it's that sort of raucous, this is about to go off the edge feel to it, but it sort of holds together. But the nice thing with this, it's actually their own song, not just a cover of somebody else. But it's funny that you've got this album where you have Jump, which is probably the most well-known track, which is entirely different from Hot for Teacher, which is probably the most representative track of the band, all in the same spot. So
it's very strange.
It's bringing in new ideas, but it's not jettisoning the bluesy rockiness of it. And
no,
I guess it's a good segue into the next track, which is "I'll Wait."
Yeah, this is an interesting
This one surprised me. It's another synth-driven track. It's mid-tempo, which are probably needed after Hot for Teacher.
Understandably.
And this was apparently quite a big single as well. I'd never heard of it, and I really, really liked it.
That's interesting. Okay. So, I noticed that there's a co-writing credit on this one, and it's Michael McDonald, who I don't really know an awful lot about, but there is a Will Sasso Vine where he's Michael McDonald in the bath, and that was all I was thinking about this entire time, was that he
came from somewhere back in the long ago.
I will put that in for people to listen to. But yeah, so this is probably the closest thing to a ballad, I think, on this record. It's very sort of down pace and just, yeah, I don't know if I really click with this one, to be honest with you. I know we needed a change of pace off the back of Hot for Teacher, but I don't know if I really vibed with this, to be honest with you. It's a lot mellower. Like I say, the synth comes back quite heavily, replaces the guitar almost entirely on this song, and yeah, it's very much like you say. It's got a sort of radio, soft rock, AOR kind of feel to it, and yeah, I don't know if that's what I want from Van Halen, to be honest with you. Don't know if it was really clicking with me in the same way it was for you. What, expand, please.
I think it's a really fun pop song.
Fair enough.
I hear you that it's slightly. I'm sorry, I'm just on the Michael McDonald Wikipedia page. Apparently, he did some stuff with Steely Dan, which is good, but I don't know what he did. I like Steely Dan. Pass. He did Yamo Be There.
Okay.
With James Ingram.
Yep.
So that makes a bit more sense, I guess, that this is a random synthy pop song. But
yeah.
I really enjoy it for what it is. I think like the bass synth line. This is classic boom 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 boom.
Yeah,
and it's basically an early synthwave track.
Yeah,
and I like a bit of synthwave. So for me, it hits the spots. I actually think it's one of the better tracks in the album. I know it sounds weird, but I think I just really enjoyed it. Thought it was a good.
That's interesting. It's
good
nice,
deep cut.
Nice to see that we still have weird opposing angles on our reviews sometimes. So yeah,
I mean, again, it's got another really good solo. Just as I say, farted out like he's doing them in his sleep.
I've made note that I really like the solo, absolutely. So I'm not going to knock it for that. But yeah, I don't know. The stylistic change on this one was a little bit. I don't know. It didn't feel like what I wanted from Van Halen, and I feel like that outside influence from Michael McDonald maybe made this a little bit more into the ballady number that I have put it down as. But yeah, maybe I need to give it more time. Maybe I don't give it the attention it deserves. But yeah, didn't quite hit me in the way I wanted it to. What did though was the next track. We go back up beat again with Girl Gone Bad. Again, another sort of metallic sounding track, more than a rock song, I'd say.
So this one, I think, is it just me or does the intro to this sound a bit like Rush?
Yeah, I can hear that, totally. Yeah, I can hear that.
I was getting some real prog rock vibes from it, and I think also it's the drumming, and it reminded me something about the way it all comes together at the beginning. It reminded me of Rush and also a bit of Led Zeppelin, like something like Achilles' Last Stand.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this one. It's a bit of a change from the rest of the album.
Yeah, no, I had a great time with this one as well. Again, the guitar was doing all that stuff I really liked that Eddie was doing earlier with his crazy flourishes, and it just seemed to sort of evolve and take on its own tangent sort of thing. And it gives it a weird sort of proggy element to it, I guess, but not at the like, not songwriting wise. The actual song itself is very traditional, very much a pop rock song or something like that, but it's got a more traditional structure. Of course, verses and choruses and all that malarkey, but yeah, it's just instrumentation wise really interesting. Love all the little flourishes that he adds to his riffs. I think those are really just fun and stylistically interesting because yeah, he obviously can't control himself. His hands just need to bend notes and things. It's just I have
probably
to must solo.
A combination of prodigious guitar playing and substance abuse. Really, feels a lot of these tracks.
I'll bear that as well, I guess. But no, I really enjoyed this one. Again, it very much sort of in a similar mold to Hot for Teacher, but at the same time, not as iconic, I suppose. It doesn't have the hooks. But it definitely has
Prog for Teacher. There you go.
Yeah, there we go. That's all nicknamed that one. I'm sure that was on the board when they were writing it.
Was Prog a thing? Was it called Prog?
Yeah,
it was just we're taking rock to strange new levels, man.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, enjoyed this all the same, and yeah, I think on the whole, the back half of this record, I definitely sort of vibed with more than the front half in a weird way. As much as the front half has the singles, it has Jump and Panama, I think the fillery tracks are weaker than the back half's fillery tracks. I don't think they're nearly
So you're saying that tracks like Girl Gone Bad and House of Pain are stronger than Top Jimmy and Drop Dead Legs?
Yeah, that's what I absolutely would.
Yeah, I think, yep. Yeah. Nah, I would agree with that. I think we're actually in agreement with this one. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I just need to get you into... I'm just going to make you listen to I'll Wait about 20 times. Don't worry, I'll wait. And then I'll see if you like that one. I think it's totally incongruous with the rest of the album, but I just enjoy it on its own merits.
Yeah. And again, I'm not adverse to this record trying different things and breaking up the pace a little bit and not just being flat out like heavy metal and having loads of fun all the time, because I think it's important for albums to ebb and flow and take you on a bit of a journey. Otherwise, they don't engage you for the entire length of the record. So yeah, I'm not adverse to I'll Wait existing. It just didn't really do the things I wanted it to. Anyway, we're not talking about I'll Wait. We were talking about Girl Gone Bad, and I think we've pretty much said everything we need to say about that. So let's talk about House of Pain. Right, I wrote that I think the riff in this, the big stompy riff, sounds like nu metal. It's
nu metal. I wrote that I thought it was the heaviest riff on the album.
Yeah. It definitely has a sort of slowy, chuggy sort of rhythmic element to it that just makes it stand out, makes it a little bit more beefier. I really enjoyed that riff actually, but it sounded in a weird way like it was quite influential to what was coming later. It had a little bit of a stylistic flourish to it that reminded me of things like Linkin Park riffs and stuff like that. I don't know what it was about it.
Yeah, I don't know what it reminds me of. I think I might describe it as a more proto-grungy sound.
Yeah, I can hear that. Absolutely.
Then maybe because obviously nu metal flows from that. And it's not
completely.
It's not quite nu metal.
Yeah.
But it's I can imagine that riff being on like a Soundgarden album, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree completely. But yeah, it was again just stylistically really interesting and different. It's like as much as you think you've got Eddie down, and what he's about to do on any record, he gives you riffs like this, and it's like, man, he's got a bit of a vocabulary to him, hasn't he? And again,
this goes quite proggy in the middle.
Yeah, totally.
Solo.
Yeah, oh mate, that solo. Oh. Great stuff. I really like as well, nearer the end of the song, it sort of picks up pace a little bit, and then we get that nice sort of galloping drum work from Alex. I think it's just really, really fun. I mean, talk about ending a record on a strong note. I think that's, I really, really enjoyed House of Pain. I think it's a great record. Great song, in fact. And it just ties everything up nicely. I think it, again, shows another string to their bow. The songwriting is different, yet interesting enough, and it keeps it within their sound. It doesn't feel out of place, but it's just guitar wise it's doing more interesting things, and you don't really hear another song that has a riff like this on this record. It's very much its own thing, and it adds, like I say, another string to the bow. I think it's a really, really cool song, and I feel like it, in a weird way, is quite influential on what would come later. I don't know if it was, but it just feels like it's got a bit of a...
The seeds were there.
The seeds were there, absolutely. Yeah, that brings us
and we're
to
done,
the end
and that's
of
it.
1984.
We're done in 33 minutes.
It didn't need any more, to be honest with you. It is a solid record from start to finish. Ebbs and flows really nicely. Lots of different influences, all permeating this record. And some absolutely outstanding singles. I really, really enjoyed my time with this. I'm so glad we got to it. Unfortunately, we got to it because of a passing, which is a little bit of a shame. But at the same time, it introduced me to a record I didn't think I was going to like, and came away from having a great time. So I think I needed that this week. So thank you very much for recommending this.
I just... I think it's easy to get into the whole, this person's dead hero worship, but it was a good excuse for me to examine the back catalogue. And definitely, if you've listened along with us and you enjoy this album, there's a lot of good stuff in the Van Halen back catalogue. Van Halen 2 is very good. I think probably the best Van Halen riff, I think, just standard riff, no solos, probably Unchained off Fair Warning. That's a really good track. It's nice to have something a little more fun and uplifting in these plague times, the continuing plague times.
Absolutely, I agreed. It was a bright point in a pretty hectic week. Okay, further listening then. I've
sarcastically written Crush 40 and Mr. Big.
I don't know if that's sarcastic or not, to be honest with you. I think that's acceptable.
Well, I've picked things that I think are more interesting, but I guess what I'm saying is the influence of this permeates through everything, and if you've ever played Sonic Adventure, it sounds definitely a lot like Van Halen.
Yeah. No, absolutely agreed. I picked an obvious one in AC/DC. I went for Let There Be Rock. I love that record. Whole Lot of Rosie is possibly one of the greatest rock songs of all time, and it reminded me quite heavily of Van Halen, so I thought it was a obvious choice. But if you want some fantastic classic rock with great riffs that doesn't waste your time, Let There Be Rock is a fantastic record. It also features Go Down, amazing song as well. Obviously the title track, Let There Be Rock, is a staple of the AC/DC set list. Problem Child is a big favourite of mine, and Whole Lot of Rosie is possibly one of the greatest rock songs of all time, and you can definitely hear the AC/DC connection on Van Halen stuff. Really enjoyed that. And the other one I'm going to recommend is a little bit more modern, but I had to recommend it because there are so many goddamn parallels to this record in particular. I am picking A Rock and Roll Machine by Turbo Negro, mainly because it has a song called Hot for Nietzsche, which is fantastic and is obviously riffing off the glam rock style of Van Halen. The glam rock element always seems to come from Van Halen on any Turbo Negro record, it's very, very obvious on Rock and Roll Machine. And the last track on Rock and Roll Machine is a song called Special Education, which is basically Hot for Teacher 2. All the lyrics are about being attracted to your teacher and being a bit of a randy bugger. It seemed appropriate. It's the most recent Turbo Negro record. Really, really good fun. Lots of great songs on it. It's more of a melding of glam rock and punk rock, but the glam element is definitely stems back to Van Halen, and those two songs in particular are clear tributes to Van Halen's work, and I would highly recommend it. One of my faves.
I thought that that was the album with Shake Your Shit Machine on it, but that's actually Sexual Harassment.
That's the previous record, but also a good record. But I think Rock and Roll Machine.
I'm just listening to. I'm just reading the reading the song titles for this album. Like, Fist City, Hurry Up and Die, Let the Punishment Fit the Behind, and John Carpenter Powder Ballad.
Yep. Mate, again, that's another one I forgot about. Yeah, loads of synth on that as well. Absolutely big Van Halen influence on that one. Oh, good stuff. Right,
got
Alan.
Got that one tracked up. Okay, so I've got two pretty much new albums that I thought were an interesting diversion. Well, I've got three. There's kind of a bonus pick. So the first one is by a band called Heat, and the album's called Heat 2. This is Heat, H, stop, E, stop, A, stop, T. And this is kind of a spiritual successor to Van Halen and Whitesnake, but it actually came out in 2020.
Okay.
And it is a heap of fun.
Okay.
I mean, this has more of the wailing vocals you'd associate with hair metal and stuff,
Yep.
but it's a really quality production, very good songwriting. If you're not singing along by the end of the second track, Dangerous Ground, something has gone wrong, because that's a whole bunch of fun. I've really been enjoying that this year.
It's not a Crush 40 cover, is it?
No, it's not a Crush 40 cover, but it's interesting that it's got the same title.
Yeah.
So the other one is, this is a bit more metally. The band's called, I think it's called Kyra, and it's spelled Cyhra.
Okay.
So Kyra is a sort of super group, and it is the ex-lead guitarist of In Flames, Jesper Strongblad, and the singer from Amaranth, who are like a sort of symphonic metal band.
Yep.
I forget the guy's name, Joey E or some bollocks like that. And it is a kind of mix of modern metal, but it's got a slice of melted hard rock cheese on top.
Lovely.
Now, they had an album. Their first album was called like Letters to Myself, and it really wasn't good. But the second album is called No Halos in Hell, and it is really fun. And I think they've really nailed the formula of how do you mash modern metal with that hard rock Van Halen-y vibe and get just enough heaviness, just enough sing-along attributes. And I had this one in really heavy rotation the tail end of last year, beginning of this year. Yeah. So my second recommendation is No Halos in Hell by Kyra. It's a lot of fun. So there's a third kind of, not quite related, but hey, I had it on the list before I remembered that Kyra would be a good pick. It's a band called the Night Flight Orchestra. Okay. And the album's called Sometimes the World Ain't Enough. So the Night Flight Orchestra is Soilwork doing album-oriented rock.
Really? Okay. That sounds fun.
And it is an absolute blast. And this was also music that we played at our wedding because I could get away with it. Nobody knew it was essentially Soilwork. So they're called the Night Flight Orchestra, and pretty much all of their songs seem to be themed around, girls in exotic locations. There are songs like, Turned Rio and Gemini and maybe it's Turned to Miami and Star of Rio, but it's also here's a location and there's a girl here, but it's really good fun. Yeah, just listening to Van Halen reminded me of this. It's a real blast. It's a lot of fun. So it's all kind of, I think the summary is this is a lot of fun. This makes you want to listen to more fun music. Yep. None of the stuff I've listened to is particularly serious. I think the Kyra guys are playing it straight, but it's too cheesy for me to take seriously.
Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting to be able to do a record like this, where it's like we are hitting elements of heavy music, and there is definitely a forward influence on things that are heavier stuff, and definitely the guitar playing and the drumming on this record in particular is definitely quite influential. But it's just so fun and bouncy and positive and silly and let's all have a beer and have a good time sort of thing. It's so you don't often touch on heavy music where you can get that right. There's very few artists that really can do it, that make that really tie it together. I suppose Andrew WK is another good choice, but yeah.
Yeah, do you know it's an interesting thought to leave us on, apart from the fact that we didn't try and guess each other's favourite track. We basically, I think we did that during Hot for Teacher.
Yeah, there's absolutely no point in trying to guess it.
So what's interesting is that bands like Turbo Negro and Night Flight Orchestra and Heat and that kind of stuff, and also bands who I think are a little less palatable, but the similar vein, like Steel Panther. Yeah. There's some. What's the word I'm looking for? It's interesting that having fun while listening to metal seems to be a nostalgic throwback.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It definitely feels like the more metal has progressed, the more we have to take it seriously, the more we have to appreciate it for its musicianship and not just being daft and fun. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. I think it is a form of entertainment at the end of the day. If entertainment is silly and fun, that's just as valid as anything that's serious and artistic, right? it's all entertainment.
Yeah.
So
well, I guess the thing is that bands grow up. They either grow up, or it's like I was chatting to Craig last night on the phone about the Offspring and how Dexter Holland's he's a published neuroscientist, but I was saying he should stick to the neuroscience, because whenever you've got this guy in his 50s up on stage doing Pretty Fly for a White Guy, something a bit weird about that. And likewise, if you've got, David Lee Roth, presumably nearly in his 60s now, singing Hot for Teacher, like at some point they have to move on. But I'm glad that there's still a cohort of bands doing that kind of fun, big, sing-along stadium rock. I'm really pleased. I'm really pleased that we're able to recommend some more modern albums rather than dipping into the classic rock back catalogue. So that's awesome. I love that kind of music still exists, and it's still fun. And that's where something that Night Flight Orchestra is good, because it's basically Soilwork riffs. So these are melodic death metal guitars, really going for it, and it's got that same kind of incredibly high songwriting skill and intricate riffs that Van Halen do so well.
No, I absolutely agree. No, well, there we go. That was 1984 by Van Halen. I think we both very much enjoyed that and needed it this week. And
that was invigorating.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree completely. But yeah, thank you very much, as always, for listening. This has been another edition of Cast Iron. You can find us at www.castironshow.co.uk. Go and check out our lovely new website. Have a explore the back catalogue. Please write and review our podcast on whatever podcasting app you are using. It would be very, very beneficial to us. It gives us more publicity and gets us in the eyes of other more people, and hopefully gets us into the ears of more people. So yes, please recommend if you enjoyed. I have been Lewis Clark. If you would like to follow me on social media for whatever reason, you can follow me on Twitter at Sonic Yoda. Alan is quickly disappearing from social media, but
I'm still kind of there. But what you should do is, if you're an Apple Music subscriber, you can follow me there. You'll find a little Apple icon on our website, and then you can play Guess What We're Going to Cover Next in Cast Iron.
Well, there we go. Good stuff.
A fun game for all the family. But seriously, like that is I use that to share a lot of playlists of my running playlist for the year, which is essentially my favorite tracks of the year. And I've got the famous Bite the Bullet playlist, where I try to pick modern Bullet from a Valentine album songs that don't suck, which is easier said than done. But I throw quite a few things in there, like workout mixes and motivation mixes and stuff. So it's a good place to connect and see the kind of stuff I'm listening to, which is an eclectic mix of young and old.
Well, there you go. I'd like to be able to recommend my Apple Podcast thing, but I don't use it, and I'm still using Last.fm. So,
maybe we can get a Last.fm link in your profile then.
Well, I can do that as well. That's not a problem at all. But yeah, we'll look into that. Okay, thank you as always for listening. We have been Lewis Clark and Alan Winston of Cast Iron. We will be back next time for something different. I'm sure we'll dive into another subcategory of metal that we haven't decided to cover just yet. But thank you as always for listening. We will be back next time. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.